for office, but the cynical people around him, including his supremely cynical wife, pushed him to do it because of their lust for power, and because of the machine in Pennsylvania he wound up winning. Kind of a disgrace to democracy, really, but that's where we are. Now, just a month into his term as a senator, we have yet another major and very sad update about John Fetterman's health. Fox's Trace Gallagher has it for us tonight. Hey, Trace.
Hey, Tucker, when you read all the press releases about the news articles about Senator Fetterman going back into the hospital, the word voluntary pops up a lot, as if Fetterman's staff is trying to emphasize that this was 100% his choice. We know that John Fetterman is now at Walter Reed Medical Center being treated for clinical depression, which he reportedly has suffered on and off throughout his life. Fetterman's office released a statement saying, quoting here, "The doctors at Walter Reed told us that John is getting the care he needs and will soon be back to himself." The hospital, nor his staff, did not elaborate on exactly what happens or what the process is to get the senator back to being himself. They will only say the doctors recommended that Fetterman get inpatient care. And remember, Fetterman spent 3 days last week in the hospital because he was feeling lightheaded, but doctors have ruled out another stroke or seizure. You'll recall he suffered a stroke on the campaign trail in May of last year that was nearly fatal, and the effects of the stroke, mostly auditory processing and speech issues, were very prevalent throughout the campaign and are still to this day. Fetterman's staff is now telling NBC News that his difficulties with communication have also had an impact on his relationship with his family, and so has his time away from them because of his Senate duties. And of course, that brings up the very same question many asked back in the fall, which is, was becoming a U.S. Senator simply too much, too soon? Tucker.
Trace Gallagher for us tonight. Thanks so much.
You bet.
So, of course, every decent person feels sorry for John Fetterman and sincerely hopes that he overcomes his cognitive problems, his physical problems, and his mental illness. But there are still millions of Pennsylvanians who were hoping he could represent them in the United States Senate, and they're now being unrepresented because he's in an inpatient psychiatric facility. What about them? It's not just about his personal journey of recovery, it's about the millions of other people. So keep them in your prayers too. Joe Biden, speaking of, had the second physical of his presidency today. It was conducted at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, as it's now called. According to the White House physician, the physical demonstrates that Joe Biden is, now we're quoting, a healthy, vigorous 80-year-old male, which may seem a little bit like an oxymoron, but whatever. He has AFib, spinal arthritis, and a few other conditions. Apparently, he did not take, notably, a cognitive test. The White House is not making the White House physician available for questions, of course. But we have, thank heaven, Dr. Mark Siegel to assess. He joins us tonight. Doctor, thanks for coming on. What do you make of this?
Tucker, you already got the key point, which is this physical exam is more significant for what it leaves out than what it actually tells us. And it tells us he's got allergies, he's got reflux, he's got spinal stenosis in his spine, he has arthritis in his spine. And they're trying to say on this physical something that we've been talking about for a year, which is where's the stiff gait he has coming from? And they're saying it's coming from peripheral neuropathy, meaning loss of sensation in his feet, which they don't know where that's coming from, and arthritis in the spine. Here's my problem with that. They're basing that on a physical examination of multiple doctors, but no MRI. I don't see anywhere in there about an MRI. Since the 1980s, I want to tell you, Dr. O'Connor, we don't just examine patients extensively and say no multiple sclerosis, no stroke, no problems with water on the brain that could be causing cognitive problems. We do an MRI. Where's the MRI? And also, you already said it, where's the cognitive test? We have a cognitive error a day, at least, from this president, who the other day said 20,000 pounds of fentanyl was enough to kill 1,000 people. How about 4 billion people? Or he calls Kamala Harris the president, or he forgets a congressperson's name, or one that has died he thinks is in the audience. I mean, this is really extensive, and it's getting worse. His own son, who he named the cancer moonshot after, he says died in Iraq. This has got to be examined. And then, listen to this. A stiff gait is sometimes a sign of cognitive problems. An MRI, a cognitive test. Now listen, Tucker, I know 80-year-olds that are operating still. We know 90-year-olds who are amazing. But it's not about age, even though most Americans say he's too old to run again. I say it's about fitness, Tucker.
Yeah, it's so obvious that it's insulting, really, to the rest of us. We appreciate your expertise in analyzing these so-called results. Dr. Mark Siegel, thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.